The coffee on the table had gone cold, but no one touched it. Hannah Doyle sat with her hands in her lap, feeling her father's eyes slide away from hers every time she looked up. Wind scraped against the cabin walls, rattling the one loose shutter, and the clock on the shelf ticked too loud in the silence. Her mother twisted her apron, pale and tight around the mouth, as if she were swallowing words that hurt. Hannah did not know what was coming, but every bone in her body felt it. Something was about to be taken from her. Her father cleared his throat, a rough, hollow sound. "Hannah," Jacob Doyle said, staring into his chipped cup, "we need to talk about the debt." Her younger brother, Eli, went still, bread half lifted to his mouth, and little Sarah drew closer to their mother. Hannah's heart beat hard in her chest. "What debt?" she asked, though she already knew. No man rode all winter for beaver pelts and came home smiling when the river flooded his traps. Jacob finally looked at her, and the shame in his eyes scared her more than anger ever had. The pelts were ruined. The spring thaw came early. "I couldn't pay back Jonah Carver." He swallowed. "He owns a big spread up in the Iron Crest Mountains. Supplies, feed, powder. I owe him for all of it." Hannah's fingers dug into the fabric of her skirt. "What does that have to do with me?" Ruth Doyle lifted her head. Her eyes were already red, as if she had cried in secret all night. "He agreed to a different kind of payment," Ruth whispered. "You'll go up to Carver Pass and keep house for him. 2 years' work will clear everything." For a moment, Hannah heard nothing but the roar of blood in her ears. The cabin around her blurred. "You gave me away," she said. It wasn't a question. Her voice came out low and sharp, like a blade drawn from a sheath. "It's not like that," Ruth said quickly, reaching out a hand. "You'll have a roof, food. It's a fine place, Hannah. Folks say Jonah Carver's a hard man, but a fair one." "You sold me," Hannah said again. She stood so fast her chair toppled and hit the plank floor with a crack that made Sarah jump. "You traded your daughter for a stack of winter supplies." Jacob pushed back from the table, trying to pull himself up to his full height. "We are 5 in this cabin," he said. "If Carver takes the land, we've got nothing. Nowhere to go. This way we keep the farm. You'll be safe up there in the mountains, with a man who pays his debts." "Safe?" Hannah laughed once, a harsh sound in the small room. "Safe with a stranger I've never met, in a place I've never seen?" Before her father could answer, the dull thud of hooves sounded outside. Every head in the cabin turned toward the door. Hannah's stomach dropped. "They're here for me already." Jacob did not look at her when he said, "Red Hawk said he'd come early." A firm knock shook the door. Jacob opened it to reveal a tall native man in a dark coat and well-worn boots. His hair was braided back, his eyes calm but sharp. He held the reins of a bay mare tied to the post. "Morning, Jacob," the man said. "Jonah sent me for the girl." Hannah hated that word. Girl, as if she were a sack of grain. Jacob stepped aside. "Red Hawk, this is my daughter, Hannah." Red Hawk gave her a small nod, respectful. "Miss Doyle," he said. His voice was steady, as if this were just another task on a long list. "The boss likes to be home by midday. Are you ready?" No, she thought. "I'll never be ready." "My things," she managed. Her mouth felt dry. She went to the small room she shared with Sarah. Her life fit into one worn bundle. 3 plain dresses, mended underclothes, her grandmother's Bible, 2 old books a circuit preacher had left behind, and a faded drawing a traveling artist had made of the family years ago. Sarah followed her, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Hannah, are you ever coming back?" Hannah knelt, pulling her little sister close, breathing in the smell of wood smoke and soap in her hair. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I'll write. I promise. You watch the road for my letters." Eli came to the doorway, eyes shining, but trying to look brave. "I'll look after Ma and Pa," he said, chest puffed just a little. "I know you will," Hannah said. "You're the man here now." In the main room, Red Hawk stood with his hat in his hands, patient but firm. Jacob kept his gaze low. Ruth clutched a small wrap bundle. "Hannah," Ruth said, stepping forward. "Cornbread for the ride." Hannah took it, but her fingers stayed stiff. She let her mother hug her, though her own arms did not rise right away. The hurt inside her was too raw, too wide. "Take care, girl," Jacob murmured. "Make the best of it, please." Hannah stepped past them and out into the cold morning air. Red Hawk led her to a gentle chestnut mare already saddled. "She's steady," he said. "Name's Daisy." "I've never ridden alone this far," Hannah said, placing her foot in the stirrup. "Well," Red Hawk replied, "today's a day for first times." They rode away from the Doyle place, past the small patch of garden Ruth had coaxed from rocky soil, past the crooked fence Jacob had built with Eli's help. Hannah kept her eyes fixed on the road ahead. She knew if she looked back, the sight of the sagging cabin and her family on the porch might break her completely. The dirt trail curled between stands of pine and bare-limbed aspens. The air smelled sharp and cold, like snow still clinging to the high peaks. Cattle grazed in far meadows, their low calls drifting on the wind. For a long time, only the creak of leather and the steady clop of hooves filled the space between Hannah and Red Hawk. At last, halfway up a long, rutted climb, she found her voice. "May I ask you something, Mr. Red Hawk?" "Red Hawk is fine," he said. "Ask, what's it like working for Jonah Carver? Folks down in the valley say he's severe." Red Hawk thought for a moment. "He's a hard man," he said, "but he's straight. He doesn't lie. He doesn't drink his brains away. He expects the same from everyone. He pays on time, and he looks after his own." "His own," Hannah repeated quietly. "You mean his men and his people," Red Hawk added. "His wife was one of those. She came from back east. Refined, gentle. She died 4 winters ago in childbirth. Since then, he's kept to himself more." A widow, Hannah thought. A ghost in that big house she'd never seen. A woman she would never meet, but whose shadow she might feel in every room. "The mountains are different up there," Red Hawk said after a while, nodding toward the sharp white peaks ahead. "They can break a man or change him." As the sun lifted higher, the trail opened, and Hannah caught her first glimpse of Carver Pass. The homestead sat on a rise above a wide clearing ringed by tall pines. The main house was 2 stories, built of thick logs, its porch wrapping all around like arms. Barns and sheds sprawled nearby, along with a long bunkhouse, a smokehouse, and a small whitewashed chapel. Men moved about their work, stopping to glance up as the riders approached. "Welcome to Carver Pass," Red Hawk said, "home of the boss." The size of it knocked a breath from Hannah's lungs. Her whole life could fit in one corner of that porch. A woman waited there for them, hands folded over a clean white apron. She was a native woman, maybe in her 40s, with dark hair braided back and streaked with silver. Her eyes were calm but missed nothing. "This is Willow Grace," Red Hawk said. "She runs the house." Hannah slid down from the saddle, legs shaky from the long ride. Willow Grace looked her over from boots to braids, not unkind, just weighing. "So," Willow said, "you're the Doyle girl." "Hannah," she said softly. "I'm 19. Call me Willow," the woman replied. "Come on then. I'll show you where you'll lay your head and what work needs doing." Hannah followed her into the house, Red Hawk leading the horses away. The moment she stepped inside, her boots clicked on polished boards, and a faint smell of beeswax, pipe smoke, and old leather wrapped around her. The front hall was wide, lined with carved furniture Hannah had only ever seen in picture pages. Paintings of mountains and rivers hung on the walls. "The house has 16 rooms," Willow said as they walked, her voice low. "We only use half. Since Mrs. Carver passed, the boss keeps to his own corners. You'll see to the main rooms, the kitchen, and whatever else I set you to." Upstairs, Willow opened a small door at the end of a hallway. Inside sat a narrow but clean bed, a little table, a chair, and a window that looked out over the gardens. Hannah set her bundle down. "This is nicer than my room at home," she admitted, surprised. Willow lifted a brow. "You'll earn it," she said. "The boss is out checking trap lines. He'll be back by sundown. We'll have you ready to meet him." They spent the afternoon walking the maze of the big house. Willow showed her the kitchen, warm and busy, with a grizzled old cook everyone called Grady stirring a pot that smelled of beef and onions. She pointed out the laundry room, the pantry, the formal dining room with its long gleaming table. Last, she opened double doors to a room that made Hannah stop in her tracks. "This is the library," Willow said, "the boss's favorite place." Shelves climbed from floor to ceiling, packed tight with books. A big desk sat near the window, papers stacked in neat piles. A leather chair waited by the fireplace. Hannah's fingers itched just looking at the bindings. She had never seen so many books in one place. "You'll dust in here every morning," Willow said, "and do it careful. Jonah Carver knows where every page lives." "Will I be allowed to read any?" The question slipped out before Hannah could catch it. Willow studied her. "You can read." "Yes, ma'am. A preacher taught me when I was little." Willow shut the door behind them. "That's between you and the boss." By the time the bell rang to call men in from the range, Hannah's feet ached and her head spun with rules and rooms. She smoothed her plain dress as Willow set plates on the dining table. The front door opened. Heavy boots crossed the hall. A hat was hung on a peg. Willow murmured, "He's here." Hannah turned. Jonah Carver stood in the doorway to the dining room, taller than she expected, shoulders broad under a worn flannel shirt and leather vest. His dark hair was threaded with gray at the temples, his jaw shadowed with stubble. Years in the high country had carved lines into his face, and a deep sadness rested behind his ice-blue eyes. Willow stepped aside. "Boss, this is Hannah Doyle, the one come to keep your house." Hannah dipped her head, every nerve on fire. "Evening, Mr. Carver," she said, grateful her voice did not shake. He looked at her for a long moment, like a man weighing the strength of a new rope. "How old are you?" he asked at last. 19, sir." "You read and write?" "Yes, sir." A beat of silence. "Willow will tell you what's needed," he said. "Work hard and you'll be treated fair." He took a plate and went to sit alone at the far end of the table, back straight, eyes on the food, as if sharing the same room was more than enough closeness. Hannah stood by the wall, heart pounding, watching the widowed mountain man, who now held her future in his hands, and wondered what kind of life waited for her in this house that felt both rich and hollow at the same time. The days slipped into a steady rhythm at Carver Pass. Each morning began before the first gray light touched the mountains. Hannah woke to the clang of the worker's bell, dressed quickly, and hurried down to help Grady prepare breakfast. Jonah always ate alone at the long table, eyes lowered over newspapers that traveled weeks from the eastern cities. Hannah served him without a word, careful not to disturb his quiet. He rarely spoke to her. A nod, a soft thank you now and then, nothing more. Yet she felt his presence everywhere, his measured footsteps across the floorboards, the distant sound of him sharpening tools in the yard, the low rumble of his voice when he spoke with Red Hawk outside. But the library, that room, drew her like a warm fire on a cold night. Every morning, Hannah began her cleaning there, dusting the long rows of books, straightening the stacks of papers on Jonah's heavy mahogany desk. She would move slowly along the shelves, fingertips brushing the bindings as if greeting old friends she had never met. One morning, she paused at a worn red leather volume left open on the desk. The page held a poem, simple and aching with meaning. She began to read, drawn by the soft pull of its words, so caught in the moment that she never heard the door open. "Do you like poetry?" Jonah's voice made her jump. The book slipped from her hands and fell shut. "I'm sorry, sir," she said quickly, bending to pick it up. "I shouldn't have touched it." "I didn't ask about the book," he said. His tone held no anger. "I asked if you like poetry." Hannah held the volume against her chest. "Yes, sir. I always have." He stepped closer, the morning light catching the silver in his hair. He looked at the page the book had fallen open to. "What did you think of that one?" She hesitated, but honesty came easier around him than she expected. "It felt like someone talking to a love that never dies," she said softly. Jonah studied her, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded. "You may read after your work is done," he said, "so long as you leave everything as you found it." He walked out, leaving Hannah breathless, heart fluttering like a startled bird. From then on, the library became a silent meeting place between them. Each day brought a new book left open on the desk, never spoken about, never explained, as if Jonah trusted her to find meaning in what he offered. Sometimes it was history, sometimes frontier stories, sometimes poetry that made her chest tighten. And slowly, something in the great house began to shift. One rainy morning in April, thunder rolled over the mountains, shaking the window panes. Hannah had been asked to help clean the music room, a place she had never seen used. Dust lay thick on the furniture, and a white sheet covered the grand piano. As she worked, she hummed a tune her mother used to sing at night, a simple folk song about love and home. Her voice filled the room, soft at first, then fuller as she forgot herself. She didn't realize Jonah stood in the doorway until she turned and saw him. Heat rushed to her face. "Sir, I'm sorry, I didn't know." "Don't stop." The words were quiet, but carried more weight than any command he had ever given. He stepped into the room, eyes drawn to the piano. "My wife played this every evening," he said, placing his hand softly on the covered lid. "After she died, I closed this door and never opened it again." He lifted the sheet slowly, revealing the dark polished wood beneath. Dust motes floated in the air, lit by the thin beam of gray morning light. "You have a lovely voice," Jonah said. "It's been years since this house heard music." "I don't know how to play," Hannah murmured. "Not yet." His gaze lingered on her for a moment, long enough that she felt it deep in her chest, before he turned and left the room with a quiet, "Keep the piano uncovered." She stood there long after he was gone, heart throbbing, knowing something between them had changed. By May, the gardens behind the house were alive again. The beds had been neglected for years, but every morning after serving breakfast, Hannah spent a half hour tending them. She planted roses, wild mountain lilies, and sweet jasmine, flowers her mother had taught her to care for. One warm morning, she knelt among a patch of new blooms, brushing dirt from her hands, when Jonah's voice carried from the porch, "You've brought life back to this place." She looked up to find him leaning on the porch railing, watching her. His newspaper lay forgotten beside him. "My mother taught me how to keep plants alive," she said quietly. "She used to say they respond to affection, like people." Jonah's expression softened. "Do you miss home?" Hannah hesitated, then nodded. "I miss my brother and sister, but not the rest." "Why?" "Because there I didn't get to choose anything. Here I can read your books. I can make something grow again. That's more than I ever had." He stepped down from the porch, his boots brushing the grass. "And does that make you happy?" Hannah looked at the flowers, their petals trembling in the mountain breeze. "Yes, sir. More than I ever dreamed." Something in him shifted. She saw it in his eyes, a flicker of warmth breaking through years of frost. "Come to the library this afternoon," he said softly. "I want to show you something." That afternoon she arrived with her heart pounding. Jonah stood at the library table, several books arranged neatly before him. "These," he said, "are works every educated person should read, if you're interested." Her breath caught. There were volumes of history, poetry, stories from the frontier, even books on planting and trade. "Sir, may I really read all of them?" "You can," he said. "You should. Knowledge is meant to be used." She touched one, the leather smooth beneath her fingers. After a long silence, she asked, "Why are you being so kind to me? This isn't how most masters treat their servants." He looked at her as if weighing a truth too heavy to speak, then said quietly, "Maybe because you remind me that good things still exist." Her heart thudded, loud and certain. Weeks passed. Summer warmed the land. In June, the nights grew long and golden, and Hannah and Jonah spent more time in the library than anywhere else. He taught her how to read maps, how to understand accounts, how to see beyond what her life had allowed. Their conversations grew deeper, softer, braver. One evening, after a discussion about poetry, Jonah closed the book slowly and said, "Would you like to see something I've never shown anyone?" She nodded. He touched a hidden latch behind a bookshelf. A section of shelves swung open to reveal a dark passage. "My father built this," he said, lighting a lantern, "a private room for his most precious books." They stepped into a small hidden library with a stone fireplace, leather chairs, and shelves filled with rare volumes. It felt like stepping into Jonah's soul. "Why show me this?" she whispered. He stared at the fire as it caught and flared. "Because you're the first person since my wife died who makes me want to share anything meaningful." Her breath caught. The room seemed to shrink, pulling them closer. "Jonah," she whispered, "what is happening between us?" He looked at her, really looked, and she saw fear, longing, and something deeper. "Something dangerous," he said. "People would never accept it. You're my servant. I'm your employer. The rumors would destroy you. And if I don't care," she whispered, "you should." She stepped closer. "Then see me as I am. Not a servant. A woman." He closed his eyes, torn by a war only he could see. When he opened them, the truth broke free. "I love you," he said, voice rough with emotion. "I tried not to, but I do." Tears burned her eyes. "I love you too." He touched her cheek, soft, hesitant, like a man afraid she might vanish. "My God, Hannah," he whispered, "what will we do?" She didn't know yet, but fate would force their hand soon enough, because love, especially forbidden love, never stays hidden for long. After their confession in the secret library, Hannah and Jonah tried to hold their feelings tight, as if silence alone could protect them. But the truth had already taken root. It lived in every look they avoided, in every quiet breath that trembled when they passed each other in the hall, in every moment they lingered too long in the same room. And the house, once cold and hollow, seemed to sense it too. Willow Grace watched Hannah more closely. Red Hawk studied Jonah with knowing eyes. Even Grady muttered that the boss had begun taking breakfast on the porch like a man waking up after years of sleep. Still, Jonah kept a careful distance. The fear inside him was a mountain he didn't know how to climb. One morning, while Hannah folded linens in the side room, Willow Grace stepped in. "You walk lighter," Willow said calmly, "but your heart is heavier. What burden are you carrying?" Hannah froze, hands tightening on a white sheet. "It's nothing, Willow." The older woman tilted her head. "Child, this house has seen joy and grief both. You don't have to say it for me to know when love walks these halls." Hannah felt heat rise in her cheeks. Willow sighed softly. "Be careful. The world is not always kind to women who love men above their station." The warning stayed with Hannah like a thorn. That afternoon she saw Jonah in the library. "We need to talk," she said. Jonah set down his papers, weariness in his eyes. "About us?" "No," she said, surprising even herself. "About what we're going to do about us." He sank back in his chair. "Hannah, I want you more than I've wanted anything in years. But wanting isn't enough. This territory doesn't take kindly to men marrying outside their class." "Why should it matter what they think?" "Because this homestead feeds families. Because traders trust my judgment. Because if they think I've lost sense, it'll hurt everyone who depends on me." "And what about me?" Her voice shook. "I love you, Jonah Carver. I am not here to be loved in secret." His jaw tightened. "I don't want to ruin your life." "You are ruining it," she said, tears threatening, "by pretending I'm someone you must hide." Silence filled the room, heavy as a storm cloud. Then Hannah said the words that changed everything. "Marry me, Jonah." He stared at her, stunned. "Hannah, you don't know what you're asking." "I know exactly," she said. "Respect, a place at your side, the right to stand beside the man I love." He stood abruptly, pacing in front of the fireplace. "It would be a scandal. They'd call you a schemer. They'd call me a fool. And what would they call you if you turned away from the woman you love because you were scared?" The words hit him hard. His shoulders sagged, years of loneliness visible in the slump of his frame. "Hannah," he whispered, "I need time." "How long?" "I don't know. Days. A week." She nodded, though her heart cracked like thin ice. "I'll wait, but not forever." The days that followed were unbearable. Jonah threw himself into work. Hannah moved like a shadow through the house. They barely spoke, both afraid that one wrong word would shatter everything. Then, on a warm July evening, everything unraveled. Colonel Harrington, a wealthy neighbor, loud and always full of opinions, came to dinner. Over whiskey. He leaned back in his chair and said loudly, "Jonah, it's time you remarried. My daughter Margaret would make a fine wife. Knows how to manage a ranch and won't embarrass you." From the corner of the dining room where she was serving, Hannah felt the blood drain from her face. Jonah set down his glass sharply. "I am not looking for a wife, Harrington." "Nonsense," the colonel said. "You need a woman of breeding, not some." His eyes flicked to Hannah, and though he didn't finish the sentence, the insult hung in the air. Hannah fled before tears betrayed her. The next morning, she found a letter on her bed. Jonah's handwriting. Her hand shook as she opened it. "Hannah, last night made me see the truth. Our love would destroy your reputation. I cannot let that happen. I've arranged for you to travel to Denver. A respectable family will take you in. A wagon will be ready at 10. Forgive me. I do not have the strength to say goodbye in person. Jonah." The room spun. Her knees almost gave out. He was sending her away. Like she was a problem to solve. Like their love meant nothing. But then anger, deep, burning, righteous, rose inside her. Hannah stormed into the library, letter in hand. Jonah looked up, startled. "You think this fixes anything?" she cried. "You think throwing me aside protects me?" Jonah stood, torn between guilt and fear. "I'm trying to do what's right." "No, you're running." He flinched. "You love me," she said, voice steady. "And I love you. You don't get to choose for both of us." "Hannah." She stepped close, placing the letter on the desk with a trembling hand. "I'm giving you 1 day. By noon tomorrow, you tell me your answer. Marry me or I leave. But not quietly. I'll tell everyone exactly why I left this house." Shock and pain crossed his face. "You would say that?" "I would tell the truth," she said, "and let the world judge which of us showed courage." She walked out before her heart shattered completely. That night, Jonah Carver could not rest. He paced every hallway, stood in each dark room, remembering the moments he had shared with her, the garden she brought back to life, her laughter, her quiet strength. Near midnight, he found himself in the secret library, the place where he first felt alive again. He stared into the cold fireplace and saw the man he had become, cautious, fearful, half alive. Was this the life he wanted? A respectable prison, a heart locked tight until death. By 3 in the morning, he had his answer. He walked to Hannah's door and knocked softly. "Hannah, are you awake?" She opened almost instantly, eyes red but determined. Jonah swallowed hard. "You're right. I've been a coward. And if I lose you, I will regret it every day until I die." Her breath caught. He took her hands, voice shaking. "Marry me. I choose you. Whatever comes, we face it together." Tears filled her eyes, but her smile was brighter than any sunrise he had ever seen. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "I've never been more sure." They embraced, holding each other as if the whole mountain might crumble around them. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Willow Grace supported Hannah with fierce pride. Red Hawk offered protection without words. Even the Reverend, brought quietly to the house, approved their union after meeting her and seeing the truth between them. But society was not so easy to win over. Colonel Harrington tried to sabotage them by presenting a man claiming to be Hannah's uncle, hoping to shame her lineage. But Jonah and Hannah stood together, and with the help of her real father, who rode from the valley to defend her, the lie unraveled. Respect began to replace gossip. By September, every flower in Hannah's garden bloomed as if blessing the day. She walked down the aisle of the homestead's small chapel, her arm linked with her father's, sunlight flooding through the windows. Jonah stood waiting, eyes shining with a love that no force on earth could deny. "I do," he said, voice steady. "I do," she whispered, tears of joy spilling freely. Their kiss sealed everything they fought for. Love above class, courage above fear, hope above sorrow. A year later, Hannah sat in her small office, reviewing reports from the school and clinic she had established for families across the valley. Jonah entered with a grin. "Another letter from Denver," he said. "They're praising your work again." But Hannah wasn't listening. She placed a hand over her gently rounded belly. "Jonah, I'm expecting." For a moment he couldn't speak. Then he gathered her close. joy breaking across his face like sunlight over the peaks. Their home, once silent and grieving, now echoed with laughter, music, and life. The gardens bloomed every season. The homestead prospered, and the people spoke of Hannah Carver as a woman of wisdom, courage, and heart. Years later, when they told their children the story of how they came to be, Jonah always ended it the same way. True love knows no barriers. Not class, not fear, not the mountains themselves. And Hannah would smile, holding his hand, knowing every word was true.